Welcome to the KFiles. Today we are investigating the Calusari, or as I like to call it, For Want of a Pink Balloon. Welcome back to the KFiles. Thank you for joining us here again in the lush basement office. Anyway,
right.
We're down here.
There's a twist in this episode.
I had to ride the basement all the way down to get here, so my brain's just adjusting to the new elevation. The lush basement office. It's deep below ground. A bunker in Nevada. No, not really. Anyway, I'm your host, Katie.
And I'm Crizali, and we're coming at you from HollywoodRedux.com.
Yes, and we are investigating the Calusari today on the show. It's a very scary episode.
I can't believe this was on television. Well, no, I take that back. I can't believe it, and it was pretty intense, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of violence. The scene in particular, I think that maybe many people are put off by, or that were put off by when it aired live, was the scene of the father, Steve Holvey, getting hanged in the garage by his necktie.
There was a lot in this episode that just was allowed. I'm pretty impressed that TV was okay with that.
Yeah, well, when it aired live, definitely Fox's standards and practices, people I think really took it apart. But now history is on the side of tell the good story, make it real. It's written by a writer that doesn't write a lot of episodes in the rest of the show, Sara. Directed by a director that we don't see all that much on the show as well, Michael Viejo, I think is how you say his name, Viejo. And so these are not a writing directing team that writes a lot. It's not like the Morgan brothers, for example, or Chris Carter himself. So we get kind of a different story with a lot of Eastern religion that we had not seen yet at that time in the show. It comes in a lot later. All Things, the Gillian Anderson written episode, dabbles in some of the more Eastern schools of thought. It's a story about brothers, really. It's a story about two brothers. The oldest story, one of the oldest stories, it dates back to the Bible, Cain and Abel. That's what the guy in one of the Calusari says, is that it's it's an old evil. It's the three insecure guys of history he lists: Cain, Lucifer, and Hitler are like the three.
But it's interesting how it plays out, because throughout the episode we find out that the kid doesn't really know, or that he was never told that he had a brother, right?
But I think that we're saying there, when you have a past trauma, even one that you don't acknowledge, it still plays out in your life. It still affects you. It still hurts you.
No doubt.
And it's really about the mom when you think about it, because she's the one who needed the soul dividing. I think her mother should have had her daughter do the soul dividing of herself, because she tried to leave her old life behind. She said she left the quote, the invisible world. She even called it that, invisible spiritual world, behind, and moved to this country with Steve, and they got married, and she'd been raising her children in that way without that component.
Right. And
what we see play out is that you can't get rid of that stuff. You have to actually have a ritual for yourself in order to move forward. If you're trying to jettison past pain, jettison past trauma, you say the little boy didn't even know that his twin had died. Well, he did know. He felt it. He knew it. Somehow it played out in his life. And obviously on this show, on the XFiles, we see, it's a supernatural phenomenon. But what that is really symbolically representing is the kid, his parents didn't tell him about it, but he still felt that some pain had happened, and he was playing that out in his behavior when he was scared. It's like when you're scared, when you don't know what to do. Sometimes you have unconscious behavior in your own life. You're not being present because you're scared. That's when the evil twin took over, is when he was scared. Then Michael would come take it away and handle the business.
Right, but not only did he feel it, but there was also speculation that his grandma had told him, right?
Well, his grandma was trying to help. His grandma knew what was going on.
The grandma knew, but there was also speculation that the grandma had possibly told the kid, or at least the mom thought that.
About the twin situation? Well, yes, that's possible, but I would say it didn't really change much because it was already
not at all.
out.
But
Yeah.
I'm just like, that's actually, I was thinking about that. I'm like, why would the grandma even do that? Like, why would she say something so horrible, I guess?
Well, she was trying to acknowledge the pain so that they could move on from it. She wanted to do these rituals to cleanse the evil, to return the normal spirit process.
That's another thing that, for me personally, I'm kind of happy the way the story was told, because I had no idea until the very end if the grandma was evil or not. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, they played it out so well. There were moments where I'm like, okay, so she's helping. No, she's not. She's being sneaky and trying to kill this kid. Like, nicely done, guys.
No, you're totally right. You're onto something there. I actually thought about this, that really the monster, you think the monster is this dead twin that's been brought into from the spirit world, the invisible world, into our world. But really what it is about parents, if you think about it. If you look at the subtle clues that we get, the 3 insecure guys in history that this episode points out: Cain, Lucifer, Hitler. If you I was watching Orange is the New Black, the new season recently. I promise this is related. And on the new season, they talk about what would you do if you had a time machine? Would you go back and kill Hitler, that old chestnut? And one of the girls says, I would actually be really go home and go back and be nice to him and nurture his artistic side and like keep him away from violence, like, try and like help him find this other aspect of himself that isn't fear-based. And like that, I think for some reason, after watching this episode and having that, the backwards swastika pointed out so many times, I understood something, which is like, maybe if Hitler's parents had been a little nicer to Hitler, who knows, like if Hitler wasn't made to feel that there was something wrong with him and he took action to feel better about himself, he felt less than, and then he decided to kill a bunch of people to make himself feel better. So obviously we're not all doing that, going around walking around. Most people just kind of spank their inner pain in the ass and move on. But maybe if it's such a big pain, you can't. Maybe if it's a pain, one of the most basic pains you can feel that Cain felt, that am I less than in the eyes of my parents? And then that fear changes how you view yourself and makes you a killer. It was what it leads to death. It made Cain kill his brother, who he loved. It made Lucifer turn on God, who he loved. It made Hitler, well, you know that story. I don't need to go down that road. But the point is, like, maybe if Steve Holvey, instead of being so mad about spending all that money on the ice cream, like, which is so great, I love that. It's perfect. That's exactly how dads are. Like, I spend the money on the ice cream. Instead of doing that, maybe he could have been paying attention to the invisible world of his family and said, hey, pal, like, is there something going on? We love you just as much as your brother. Like, time for maybe a little talk, because there's a demon who's taken up residence and needs to be cleansed. And you have to wonder, like, how maybe it's the Hitler parent conundrum. Maybe. If the mother and the father, if the mother had acknowledged her, the invisible world of herself, in a way that didn't piss the spirits off, or whatever, however you want to talk about it, maybe things would be different. Right. And that's what they say. Like, it's the grandma Gilda says it, that it's pain begets pain. Right. Death leads to more death. So that's what you get.
Damn, Hitler had some messed up parents. But I can see how that...
I think they were normal parents, and Hitler needed, like, probably more than most kids. So they sort of said, like, sorry, Adolf. Kind of in the way that Steve Holvey did, which is like, he's a good dad. He wasn't a bad dad. These are not bad parents. It's just sort of like looking at the X-Files, you can see how things happen. How, like, one day you wake up and there is a evil twin who sometimes comes around and kills people in your house, in your family. You, even. I mean, Steve died in a terrible way. Not that he deserved it, but, pain begets pain.
I see it more towards, I think, more anger that one of the twins survived. That's how I perceive the episode.
For who's angry?
Or for the twins, actually. You know how one of them, like Charlie, actually had the opportunity to live, and actually had the opportunity to live a childhood? Or Charlie, right? Charlie, yes. And then Michael didn't. So I think Michael was more upset than anything. That's why this whole like thing started.
Well, I mean, he's Cain. That's the thing. Like,
no, for sure.
He's the child who is dead does not see the good things. He only sees what he does not have. Mm-hmm. So that's that aspect.
Oh, you know what else? Just really quickly, fun fact. Charlie was actually in a previous episode in season 1.
Oh yeah,
Kyle Morris. Right, Morrison?
Kevin, right? Was his name in Conduit with a little boy in Conduit?
Yeah, I think so.
He's got that same, like, just...
Same dead stare. That kid was fantastic, dude. Is he in more episodes?
I think he must have grown up to be a principal or something with that, like, angry stare
he went from the
he's
X-Files
got.
to principal.
Well, I no, he's not in any other episodes, to answer your question.
Nice.
But
Good call,
there is an episode actually that's very much like this in the 8th season called Invocation.
Yes, we were talking.
And the opening is so similar. It was actually frightening. But I think it's on purpose. I think that we're meant to draw parallels. And the lullaby that or the song that the mom sings in the beginning in this is they're 5 in the bed and the little one said roll over, like that song. So that, and then in Invocation, it's All the Pretty Little Horses is the lullaby that's playing. So it's definitely X-Files echoing itself, the waves of X-Files playing out in later seasons. I think you see that. We were just talking about that before we started the show, is that like this episode does not have it's a monster of the week, but it's missing slightly this emotional component for the characters. Like we have Mulder and Scully, and they are on the investigation, but there's not necessarily like a beginning emotional point and an end point for them. They kind of just experience the case, which is fun, and it's a great case.
Yeah, it's more storyline than anything in this one.
Yeah, the early seasons we see more of this, where it's like real case investigations that ask them to do good police work, like Scully does the all that investigative stuff that she does, but also paying attention to the invisible world, to the supernatural world. Mulder making those connections, the backward swastika and all this. So they're really falling into their groove in terms of like they're actually just investigative force, and they're hitting their stride hair-wise. Yeah. I would also add, coming into it anyway. I don't know. What else? Anything else? What else are we missing on the Calusari?
I think we covered everything, to be quite honest.
I like saying the name, Calusari.
I think you're the only one who can say it, to be honest, right now.
I accept. All right, well, that's going to do it for us here on the KFiles. Thank you for tuning in to the investigation. We hope we illuminated some dark corners for you on this episode. We like to say on the show, the truth is already here, and I think that we just need to peel back the layers of the X-Files onion, and I think all the truths we need will be revealed.
Nicely said.
Oh,
I think so.
I'm your host, Katie. I'm joined by, please let me introduce you.
And I'm your co-host, Chrysalia.
Yeah, and we're on HollywoodRedux.com, where you can find a lot of other great content, like a video game podcast, a movie review podcast. We have sketches, we have shorts, we have a lot of fabulous internet treasures that we make for you. So please subscribe to our YouTube and
just click the button down there, dude.
subscribe-a-rooney. Subscribe-a-roo.
See that one?
Yep. And we'll be back again next week with a new investigation. Thank you again for tuning in, and goodbye.
See you guys.